The sky above the alien world of Thaloria was streaked with violet clouds, casting strange, shifting shadows over the jagged mountains and vast plains. In the grand palace perched atop the central plateau, the alien queen Selara moved through her halls with heavy steps. Her normally poised demeanor had been replaced by tension. Her youngest daughter, Liara, had been missing for months, taken by a rival faction that sought to destabilize Selara's reign. The halls were silent, save for the soft hum of energy conduits and the distant cries of palace attendants. Selara's heart ached with every step. She had always been a queen capable of commanding armies and negotiating peace, but the helplessness she felt over Liara's absence weighed on her more than any battlefield ever had. Selara paused by a window looking out over the alien forests below. Her eyes, normally sharp and calculating, were clouded with worry. She clenched her hands, feeling a strange mixture of fear and desperation. Reports from scouts were scarce, and none brought good news. It had been weeks since any word of Liara's whereabouts reached the palace. The queen's advisors suggested patience and strategy, but Selara could not simply wait. She had sent envoys, spies, and even trained warriors into the enemy's territory, yet each attempt ended in failure or silence. Something more was needed, something unexpected. Far above Thaloria's dense forests, a small starship descended from the violet clouds. Inside, Captain Ethan, a human soldier from Earth, adjusted his armor. He had been briefed on this world's complex politics and the dangerous factions that threatened its fragile balance. Ethan was not only strong and skilled in combat, but he was also known for thinking in ways that aliens often found unpredictable. That reputation had earned him this mission, a high-stakes task to rescue a kidnapped royal child. The aliens had watched humans from afar, curious and skeptical. Many doubted that a human, lacking their advanced technology and experience with local combat, could succeed. But Ethan was determined. Failure was not an option, not when a life was at stake. Ethan's ship landed silently in a dense grove near the foothills of the mountains. He stepped out, scanning the alien terrain with practiced eyes. The trees were taller than any on Earth, their trunks glowing faintly with bioluminescent patterns. Strange, bird-like creatures with sharp beaks circled overhead, their cries echoing across the forest. The air was thick and slightly sweet, carrying scents unfamiliar to human senses. Yet for all its beauty, Ethan knew the forest could be deadly. Predators lurked, both natural and sentient. He moved cautiously, relying on his training and instincts to navigate the alien environment. Every step brought him closer to Liara, yet the uncertainty of what lay ahead made him tense. Back in the palace, Selara gathered her commanders. Each was a seasoned warrior, trained for years in both strategy and combat. Yet even they expressed doubts about a human soldier entering the dangerous territory. "Your Majesty," said Commander Vayar, his voice steady but cautious, "humans are untested here. They lack our understanding of the terrain and our combat methods. We cannot guarantee success." Selara's eyes blazed with frustration. "I have no choice," she said firmly. "Liara is my daughter. If you will not act, I will bring in one who will. I trust this human." The room fell silent. Some officers exchanged uneasy glances, others scowled at the Queen's decision, but Selara's resolve was unshakable. Meanwhile, deep in the enemy's fortress, Liara sat in a small, dimly lit cell. Her hands were bound, and her clothes were worn and torn from months of captivity. Though she had learned to hide her fear from her captors, alone in the dark, she felt the weight of despair pressing on her chest. She had tried to escape once before, only to be caught and punished. The days blended together, each one a repetition of cold floors, harsh guards, and the constant, gnawing fear that she would never see her mother again. Yet she clung to hope, a fragile ember in the darkness. Sometimes she whispered to herself, imagining her mother's face, the warmth of the palace, and the possibility that someone might come for her. Liara's thoughts were interrupted by distant sounds of movement, shouts, metallic clanging, and the faint hum of energy shields. She froze, listening intently. Could it be her captors moving her again, or perhaps reinforcements arriving? Her heart pounded in her chest. She pressed herself against the wall, trying to remain invisible. A shadow passed near the doorway, and for a brief moment she caught sight of a figure moving with careful precision. The movements were unfamiliar yet purposeful. There was a sense of confidence, of calm authority. Her heart leapt. Could it be? Could help really have arrived? Outside the fortress, Ethan had reached the outer perimeter. Sensors and traps, designed by the rival faction to deter intruders, were everywhere. Alien technology hummed in the air, detecting movement and energy. Yet Ethan moved with deliberate care, using both human ingenuity and the limited alien intelligence he had learned from his briefings. He disabled a few minor traps, avoiding confrontation where possible. His goal was not to fight, but to rescue. Every step brought him closer to Liara, and every step tested his patience and skill. He was meticulous, knowing that one misstep could alert the guards or trigger a deadly security system. Hours passed as Ethan navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the fortress. He relied on a combination of sensors, careful observation, and intuition. Occasionally, he paused to listen, adjusting his path based on the subtle vibrations and sounds of the structure. It was a dangerous game of patience and perception. Finally, he arrived at a heavily secured cell block. The locks were complex, a mixture of mechanical and energy-based security. Ethan studied them carefully, then began to work. Using a small device of his own design, he bypassed the locks, exploiting the vulnerabilities that rigid alien engineers had overlooked. A faint click sounded, and the door slid open. Liara looked up, wide-eyed, as the figure stepped into the room. "Are you here to help me?" she whispered. The human soldier knelt slightly, meeting her gaze. "Yes," he said simply, "I'm here to get you out." There was no boast, no exaggerated bravado, just a calm certainty that gave Liara hope. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Together they moved through the corridors, avoiding patrols and using hidden routes Ethan had memorized. As they made their way out, alarms suddenly blared. The enemy had discovered the breach. Ethan reacted instantly, guiding Liara to a side exit while he created diversions to mislead the guards. He used small, improvised devices to trigger false alerts, drawing attention away from their escape route. The sounds of pursuit echoed behind them, but Ethan's strategy was precise, his timing perfect. For every obstacle, he found a solution, relying on human adaptability where brute force would have failed. The terrain outside the fortress was unforgiving. Volcanic cliffs, jagged rocks, and unstable ground made every step dangerous. Ethan helped Liara navigate the sharp edges, keeping her steady and calm. They moved quickly but carefully, understanding that one misstep could mean death. Despite the danger, Liara felt a sense of awe at the human beside her. His calmness in the face of danger, his quick thinking, and his determination were unlike anything she had seen. For the first time in months, she felt safe. Hours later, as the first light of Thaloria's twin suns broke over the horizon, they reached a secluded grove near the palace. Ethan paused, scanning the surroundings to ensure they were not followed. Liara, exhausted but relieved, turned to him. "You saved me," she said softly. Ethan smiled faintly. "We're not out of danger yet," he said, "but we're close. Your mother is waiting." Liara's heart swelled with emotion. She thought of her mother, of the queen who had faced countless threats yet had never shown fear for her people, and who now waited for her return with hope and despair mingled together. Tears filled her eyes, but for the first time in months, they were tears of hope. Meanwhile, in the palace, Salara's anxiety had reached its peak. She had spent the night watching the horizon, feeling each passing moment as if it were an eternity. Suddenly, a scout returned, reporting a human-sized figure leading a young alien girl through the outskirts of the forest. Selara's heart skipped a beat. Could it really be? She summoned her guards and rushed to the balcony overlooking the grove. When she saw Liara emerge, safe and unharmed, her knees nearly buckled. The girl ran forward, and Selara's attendants parted as the queen descended the stairs, her cloak flowing behind her. Selara's eyes met Ethan's, and she saw in him a bravery and skill that went beyond any alien warrior she had known. He had not only navigated their dangerous world, but had rescued her daughter when even her best forces had failed. Liara ran into her mother's arms, and Selara's tears flowed freely. She wept openly, clutching her daughter as if she would never let go. My child is safe," she whispered, her voice trembling. Liara hugged her tightly, feeling the warmth and safety of her mother's embrace for the first time in months. Ethan stood quietly to the side, allowing the reunion to take place. The alien court, witnessing this moment, felt a mixture of awe and respect. Many had doubted the humans' capabilities, but now they could see what true courage and ingenuity could achieve. Selara finally looked up, her eyes glistening with gratitude and something deeper, an unspoken recognition of humanity's potential. As the suns rose higher over Thaloria, casting golden light across the palace, Selara held her daughter close and whispered, "Thanks to this human soldier, my daughter has returned. Never again will I underestimate what humans can do." Liara looked up at Ethan with admiration and relief, knowing that she owed her life to someone from a world so different yet so extraordinary. And in that moment, the queen, the daughter, and the human soldier formed a bond that would not be forgotten, a bond born of courage, hope, and the undeniable strength of the human spirit. The sun climbed higher over Thaloria, casting long golden shadows across the jagged cliffs and sprawling palace gardens. The grove where Liara and Ethan had paused for rest was alive with the sounds of alien wildlife, yet the beauty of the moment could not mask the tension that lingered. Ethan knew that although they had escaped the fortress, danger still loomed. Enemy scouts and patrols could strike at any moment, and the route back to the palace would demand every ounce of skill and wit he possessed. Liara, though exhausted, walked close to Ethan, trusting him completely. She could still feel the weight of captivity lingering in her limbs, but the human beside her moved with confidence that inspired courage. How did you get through their defenses?" she asked, her voice quiet but filled with awe. Ethan gave a faint smile. "I watched, I waited, I thought. Sometimes it's not strength that matters, it's knowing how the other side thinks. They expected one thing, I did another." Liara nodded, trying to absorb his words. She had been trained in palace etiquette and diplomacy, but never in battle or tactics. Yet here was a human, from a completely different world, who had navigated the enemy's fortress and brought her safely back. The idea both amazed and humbled her. They moved cautiously through the forest, avoiding open paths and keeping to hidden trails. The terrain was treacherous, with cliffs on one side and dense vegetation on the other. Ethan led them with meticulous care, constantly scanning the environment for threats. At one point, a sudden tremor ran through the ground. Liara stumbled and Ethan caught her just in time. "Careful," he said. "This land doesn't forgive mistakes." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of experience and the subtle reassurance that he would not let anything happen to her. Meanwhile, in the palace, Selara could hardly contain her anxiety. Though her daughter had been seen with a human soldier, the queen feared ambushes, treachery, and unforeseen dangers. She had already ordered palace guards to be ready, positioning forces at key points along the outskirts of the palace grounds. The tension in the throne room was palpable. Even her most trusted commanders exchanged worried glances, unsure if a human could truly succeed where seasoned alien warriors had failed. Selara, however, held firm. She believed in the human, in the courage that defied reason, and in the hope that had brought her daughter this far. As Ethan and Liara approached the outer edge of the forest, they heard the faint hum of alien engines. Enemy scouts were on their trail. Without hesitation, Ethan directed Liara to a narrow ravine. "We can use this path," he whispered. "They won't expect us here." The ravine was narrow and steep, filled with jagged rocks and unstable footing. Liara's heart pounded with fear, but Ethan's calm presence gave her courage. Step by careful step, they navigated the dangerous path, using handholds and natural formations to steady themselves. Above them, the scouts struggled to follow, their bulky forms ill-suited to the tight ravine. Ethan used the opportunity to create a diversion. He triggered small, harmless devices along the ridge above, sending sparks and debris tumbling down. The scouts halted, confused and cautious, giving Ethan and Liara the chance they needed to slip further ahead. Finally, they emerged from the ravine onto a plateau that overlooked the palace. The sight of their home, bathed in morning light, filled Liara with emotion. Tears welled in her eyes as she saw the familiar spires and gardens, the place where she had grown up and felt safe. Yet their journey was not over. Patrols remained, and the palace gates were still guarded. Ethan surveyed the scene carefully, analyzing every angle. "We can make it," he said. "Follow my lead." Moving quickly but silently, Ethan guided Liara through the final stretch. They avoided open spaces, using shadows and natural cover to remain unseen. When they reached the palace gates, they found the main entrance blocked. Guards had been doubled and the gates were heavily fortified. Ethan paused, considering his options. "There's another way," he said finally. "A smaller gate near the eastern wall. It's lightly guarded." They approached the eastern gate, using skillful timing to slip past the few guards stationed there. Liara's heart raced with anticipation but also with relief. She was finally home. Ethan, ever vigilant, kept scanning their surroundings, ensuring that no threats followed them. When they entered the palace grounds, the familiar scents and sounds brought a sense of peace. The guards recognized the human soldier from earlier reports and allowed them to pass without question. Selara, waiting in the palace courtyard, felt a surge of hope as she saw movement approaching. Her heart leapt when she recognized Liara's figure, small but unmistakable. The queen moved forward, her steps quick and determined, as the courtyard seemed to grow quiet around them. Liara broke into a run, tears streaming down her face, and Selara caught her in a tight embrace. "My child, you are safe," Selara whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Liara clung to her mother, overwhelmed by the reality of being home. Ethan stood slightly to the side, giving mother and daughter their moment. The alien court, assembled in the courtyard, watched in awe. Many of them had doubted that a human could succeed, yet here he was, alive, calm, and responsible for saving the royal child. Selara's gaze met Ethan's, and in that moment there was a mutual understanding. She saw courage, intelligence, and compassion, a combination that surpassed even the most advanced alien warriors. Even as the reunion continued, Selara remained aware of potential threats. She turned to her commanders, giving quick, precise instructions to secure the palace perimeter and ensure no enemy forces remained nearby. Despite the emotion of the moment, her mind was sharp, balancing relief with vigilance. Ethan assisted where he could, helping to coordinate patrols and offering insights that only a human perspective could provide. Liara, still in her mother's embrace, finally looked at Ethan. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice full of gratitude and admiration. Ethan simply nodded, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond they had formed through the ordeal. It was not just bravery that had saved her, it was trust, strategy, and a willingness to face the unknown. Liara's eyes sparkled with a newfound respect for humanity, realizing that the differences between worlds did not matter when courage and heart were involved. The queen led Liara into the palace, and the court followed. The corridors were filled with murmurs of awe and admiration for Ethan, the human who had defied expectations. Selara's attendants brought water and nourishment for Liara, while Ethan took a moment to rest and recover from the exhausting journey. The human's endurance and calmness had been remarkable, leaving even the most skeptical aliens impressed. Later, in the private audience chamber, Selara addressed Ethan directly. "You have done something no one else could," she said, her voice steady but full of emotion. "You saved my daughter. You have shown that humanity is not only brave but capable of greatness beyond imagination. For this, I am grateful beyond words." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her gratitude. "I did what I had to," he replied simply. "Your daughter needed help. That's all that mattered." Selara smiled faintly, placing a ceremonial pendant, a symbol of royal honor, around Ethan's neck. The gesture was both formal and deeply personal, acknowledging not only his actions but the spirit of humanity he represented. Liara watched, her eyes shining with pride and relief. She had been through darkness and fear, yet now she felt the warmth of family, the safety of home, and the remarkable kindness of a human who had risked everything for her. As the day progressed, the palace slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Selara ensured that her daughter was cared for, while the human soldier was honored in ways fitting his courage. Stories of Ethan's bravery spread quickly, not just among the palace inhabitants but across the kingdom. Aliens who had once doubted humans now reconsidered, seeing that their own assumptions had been limited. Intelligence, courage, empathy, and adaptability, the human qualities, had made all the difference. In the quiet moments of the evening, Selara, Liara, and Ethan stood together on the balcony, overlooking the glowing forests and distant mountains. The twin suns of Thaloria cast a warm, golden light, illuminating the palace and its surroundings. The queen's voice was soft, almost a whisper. "My daughter is safe, and it is because of you. Humans, you are extraordinary." Ethan glanced at her, feeling a deep respect for the alien queen who ruled with both strength and heart. "We all have our strengths," he said. "Sometimes it just takes courage to use them." Liara leaned against her mother, feeling a sense of belonging and safety she had not known for months. She looked at Ethan with admiration, realizing that her life had been saved not just by brute force or skill, but by a combination of intelligence, compassion, and determination that transcended worlds. The experience had changed her, not just physically and emotionally, but in how she saw the universe and the potential of those from different worlds. As night fell over Thaloria, the palace glowed softly with lanterns and energy lights. The human soldier had earned a place not only in the queen's gratitude, but also in the hearts of those who had witnessed his courage. For Selara, Liara, and all who lived in the palace, the rescue was more than just the return of a child. It was proof that humanity could stand alongside the mightiest civilizations, not through domination, but through ingenuity, heart, and unyielding courage. And in that moment, the bond between Thaloria and Earth was strengthened, symbolized by a human soldier who had ventured into the unknown, risked everything, and returned a princess to her mother. The queen wept, not out of sorrow, but of relief and awe, knowing that in this vast universe, hope and courage could come in the form of a human from a distant world, one who reminded them all that heroes could come from anywhere. The stars began to sparkle over the alien horizon, and the palace fell into a peaceful silence. Selara held Liara close, Ethan stood watch, and a quiet sense of triumph settled over them. Humanity had proven itself once again, not through sheer power, but through qualities that no technology or alien might could replicate. This was a victory of spirit, of heart, and of the unbreakable bond that could form across worlds when courage and determination met need.